Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, the diet starts tomorrow. The podcast starts right now. What is up? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, however you have been consuming Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you guys very much. You are the best. A big shout out to both our sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbey Road, just on the way from Highmark Stadium. Midsummer right now, that outdoor patio, brand new one. It's been great. We've done a couple live shows there, a couple really fun ones too. I had Joe Marino, Jeremy White on last Thursday from there, run on the patio. Great time. So make sure you go check them out. And of course, Imperial Pizza, 2 locations, Main Street near Canisius College, and the one, my favorite one, in the heart of South Buffalo, 1035 Abbey Road, home of the best lunch special in town. All right, so we're recording this on Tuesday for a Wednesday podcast drop. The Bills are off from practice on Tuesday. 2 more practices left here at St. John Fisher. And I'm joined right now. I'm going to bring in my buddy who has been doing an incredible job covering camp this year at St. John Fisher for the Bills, Mike Bundt from Trainwreck Sports. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me on the show and can't wait to talk about the Bills.
Yeah, we got plenty to talk about. And let me start here, okay? I want to kind of offer, even you guys might not even know it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I want to offer you and Trainwreck Sports as a media entity a little bit of an apology, and allow me to elaborate a little bit here, okay? I've been, I'm a fan of Trainwreck Sports. I've been for a long time. I'm no maniac for a very long time. Trainwreck Sports has a great niche and do a lot of fun stuff. I say maniac. I call him more of a kind of a hype man as opposed to like a serious sports journalist. And that's not an insult whatsoever. Great at what they do. Him and Slick, they go to camp every day. They're out there. They're interviewing fans. They're screwing around with the kids. They're wearing some weird outfits. Really, really cool stuff. That's just their brand. That's what they do. I would say by and large, for the most part, when it comes to Trainwreck Sports as a media entity, for the most part, that's kind of what they're all about. And I've always enjoyed that. It's like a different side to content creation. Not everything has to be, in a studio and all serious all the time. And I've always appreciated that. But, and this is kind of where the apology comes in towards you guys and you specifically, well, not you specifically, but more so just the entity. When it got time for training camp and, outlets apply for credentials to cover camp, this is an NFL team. I was like, really? Trainwreck Sports got a credential? What are we doing here? And again, allow me to finish here. There's other, outlets who some, like my guy Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, I've had tons of conversations with him. He was at camp all week. And there's other outlets, whether they're blogs or podcasts or, just other media forms of media that get rejected for credentials. And we're not going to get into who does and who doesn't get them because that's kind of irrelevant to this point. But I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. It's like I expect Maniac and Slick to be out there in front of, the gates with the fans doing what they do and doing it well. And then I'm like, really? Trainwreck? And I would also be clear, okay? This is no personal hostility for me. On God, dude, I don't even apply for a media credential. And we'll get into why I choose that in a second. But I guess what I'm saying is I was surprised and like kind of almost borderline weirded out. I'm like, Trainwreck Sports is covering the Buffalo Bills on a professional level on camp on the sidelines. I offer this apology because I have been following the work that you've done at camp. And holy shit, bro. I'm not just saying this. This is why I wanted to reach out to you, one of the reasons, and have you on the show. You, and I legitimately mean this. How I felt before camp and how I feel now are 2 completely different things because you have brought outstanding value to content creation throughout this camp. A couple stories that you actually produced yesterday I want to get into specifically in a second because I was really interested in them and I thought they were so well done. But yeah, I guess let me start by saying that I do, that Shaq, that meme where it says, I wasn't familiar with your game. I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with the game. That's how I feel right now, a good 11, 12 days into camp about you and about Trainwreck Sports, man. Congratulations, because you guys have done a phenomenal job of covering camp.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And obviously at Trainwreck, we do embrace the fun side of things. And that's really what our history has been as a brand. So we don't take any offense to anybody that's the first thing that pops in their head, because that really is what we have always been about. But one of the things that I've been trying to bring to the brand, and there's a few other guys that we've added recently too, AJ Sabalski comes to mind, and then we got some young people in college going for journalism, is that we're trying to get a little bit more of a professional side. A lot of people don't know about my background, but I was a professional sports anchor. I worked at local affiliates, ABCs, NBCs, CBSs, Foxes. So it's something I can bring to the table, but it's not something that we're going to be able to change our reputation overnight. It's even when we're talking to the teams, it's telling them, hey, I know you have this thought process of Trainwreck, but we're trying to add a new side to us. And it's a tough balancing act when you have a really fun side with the fans and you're trying to also be professional. And sometimes it creates some interesting conversations in-house. But definitely appreciate the Bills for giving us that opportunity during camp. And it looks like so far that we were able to take advantage of it and really show people a different side of what we can bring to the table.
Well, there's no question about that. You definitely have. And again, it's not being disrespectful towards the silly hype, the fun side of Trainwreck Sports, but there is a big difference between whether it's Maniac or whether it's Slick or whether it's whoever who's doing an interview. And you got Keon, let's use Keon Coleman as an example. And you're asking him a couple questions and then you're going to ask him at the end, does this train ever stop? You know what I mean? That's like the punchline. That I get it. If this was wrestling, that's the catchphrase with Trainwreck Sports. What you're doing is not that. You're not having an interview on the field, Keon Coleman, after practice, and you're not asking him if this train ever stops at the end. You know what I'm saying? There's definitely differences. So like I said, I'm being honest. Color me skeptical before camp that I was like, Trainwreck Sports has media credentials, and there's others that don't. But I get it now. Again, you got to earn your way, and you guys, and you specifically, you certainly have. Before we get into some Bills specific topics and a pair of stories that you worked on yesterday and produced, which by the way, on the video side is just a really fun watch. It's one thing for you and I to be sitting here in our respective home studio setups and shooting the shit. But I mean, you're on the field and you're producing video B-roll over you talking, and it just looks like a Channel 4 news report. You know what I mean? So, and again, it kind of speaks to your background, like you talked about. But what's it been like for you personally, being able to cover these practices as a media guy, both the pros, because there are pros, and I do think, and we'll talk about this in a second, as a fan who is covering a team, like you and I both are fans of the Buffalo Bills, and we do not run from that. But there's a con, in a way, to being a working member of the media when you are a Bills fan. But what's it been like for you covering these practices? Again, pros and maybe a con.
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. I don't want to go all the way to saying it's a dream come true, because we are talking about training camp. We're not talking about covering games and stuff beyond that. But when I was young, the whole reason why I entered the media industry in high school, college, and beyond was because I wanted to one day cover the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres. And that was something I was always striving for. And I've had opportunities to cover a lot of great things. I covered Ohio State the year they had JT Barrett and Cardell Jones and ended up going to the national championship. I got to be on the field for Ohio State, Michigan, a lot of big games. Covered an NHL All-Star game, PGA tournaments. But I never had the opportunity before recently to ever really do any of that in Buffalo, outside of UB Bowls, local colleges, stuff like that. So to be up close and personal, getting to go to Bills press conferences, be around the Bills beat players, their communication staff, it really was an incredible experience just for me to have that feeling of this is what it's like. This is what the job is, what the dream was, and then not just being able to do it, but putting together quality work and kind of proving to myself that yeah, I can do this. Like
Yeah.
if an opportunity does present itself, I do have the ability to do a good, a high level quality of work. So for me, it was fun from a personal and professional experience, and uh, just seeing it up close in person gives you a completely different perspective than what you see in the stands, and even conversations with players, and it gives you an appreciation for what everyone on the beat uh, does on a daily basis covering the team.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of pros. You mentioned some of them. Others, free parking. That never hurts to be able to be able to park it a lot. Free access to something, access to players, access to coaches, access to press conferences, or being able to talk to people off on the side, which you did, and we're going to talk about here in just a second. But all that stuff and the ability to develop and nurture and cultivate relationships over time when you do this for a living. I'm talking about, with players and coaches who ultimately, in some cases, that's how you develop sources, good sources, legitimate, real sources. So there's lots of pros to it. And quite frankly, look, there's a credibility that comes along with being able to be on the sideline and to sit there and shoot the shit with Keon Coleman and be able to produce a story. There's a clout that definitely comes with that. So there's a lot of pros. The other side of it, and this is kind of why I choose to, as long as I'm in this role as a host of Talking Buffalo, why I just would like to remain the way it is. I say whatever I want to say right now, and I don't got to worry about anybody from the Bills media relation department. Well, they might say something, but I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about it because I am a knee-jerk reactor, at times overly emotional reactor to the news of the day, good and bad, the highs are the highs, the lows are the lows. I do want to keep my fandom, which I can do on this show. I'm still objective on how I talk about the team, but again, the emotion, the fandom, and all that stuff, you lose that when you cover a team. You have no choice. You have to be objective. You know what I mean? So there's cons to it as well. Kind of like I said, you're under the more watchful eye of other people, where right now I don't have to worry about that. Now, maybe if I was writing, if I was producing stories and, that included video and stuff in one-on-one interviews with players like you have been doing, that's a different story. Then there's a specific reason. Like there's a good value of being able to get a media credential to cover a team, as opposed to what I do, which is just getting people like you to come on the show and talk about what we did. And I can say whatever I want. So like, I'm just saying that there's both sides to the fence. Let's get into Keon Coleman, because that's a story that you talked to Keon Coleman after practice. I believe, I don't know if you talked to him on Monday, but the story I watched on Monday, your piece on Keon Coleman. What was your conversation like with him? What was your takeaway from having a chat with him? And got to ask you a nerdy tech question real quick. He had a Rode wireless. Was that you?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. These are the little things that I'll notice that most people don't. I was like, because Keon sounded pretty crispy on the story that you produce. I was wondering about that. I'm like, did you mic him up? And obviously the answer is yes. But what are your thoughts on Keon Coleman? He's had a very, very, and I've been to 4 practices myself now. He's had a very good camp, man. He looks like a different player, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But just talk about just having an opportunity to talk with Keon Coleman after practice and what your takeaways were from that.
So first, it was a Rode wireless, and all my equipment, my own personal camera, monitor, mics. So having done the TV side, it helped me kind of get a good setup for stuff I need. But talking to Keon, you can tell he's dialed in. All the talk last year about the yellow jacket, the cookies, it was all fun and games when he was first elected. But I think some of that started to annoy him as things went on, that he wasn't being taken serious enough, and that it was just about fun and games, not about what was on the field. And it appears, at least through my conversation with him and what I've seen so far during camp and how he came across during a presser earlier in training camp, that he is trying to convey a much more serious side of him to the media, to fans. He is dialed in. He still has a tremendous level of confidence. You ask him what his goals are. He wants to be the best version of himself. He wants to be a Hall of Fame caliber receiver. And when asked, one thing that I was doing with a lot of the players is I was asking them, how do you want to be looked at? Obviously, different positions require different skill sets and there's different specialties. And I was like, what is your specialty? What do you want to be thought of as? And he basically said, I want people to think I can do everything. I want to be able to make contested catches. I want to get open. I want to block. Whatever they tell me to do, I can do. So it was, obviously players have confidence. They're playing in the National Football League, but it was refreshing to hear that it was just straight to the point, and we're trying to get an objective done, and I'm doing whatever it takes to get there.
And I want to point out again, if you haven't seen it, go on Mike's Twitter, and I'll put a link, and I'll put a link to that specific story that you put out in the show notes. Really well done. Like I said, there's just an element when you can add video because you're there on top of the conversation. It just kind of makes the piece jump a little bit. So very well done. I'll say this: my very short version of what I've seen from Keon Coleman at camp is this. If Christian Benford's not on him, he's dominated. That's what it is. And that's not a knock saying, anything against Keon Coleman when Christian Benford's on him. Christian Benford's going to shut down 98.5% of the receivers in the NFL if he's on them day after day at training camp. And he's had some success against Benford too. It's not like he hasn't done anything against him, but if it's not Christian Benford, it feels like it's almost a mismatch almost every day out there in Rochester. I think, Mike, realistically with Keon Coleman, that the growth ceiling for this year is, if he's not great at separating off the line. There's things that he's not great at. You can't really expect him to wave a magic wand, and he is working at it. I'm not saying he's just throwing in the towel on it, but the skills that he's not as good at, I don't think you should expect him to just go into year two and become a great separator or become great at certain things. What I think is the things that he is really good at: contested catches, high pointing balls, the physicality, run blocking. We saw plenty of that with him early in the season last year. Improvising when a pass protection breaks down and Josh gets on the move and Keon finds that opening and makes a big play. He had a couple big run after catches last year as a rookie. The things that he does well, he's going to continue to do well, but he's going to do it more consistently. That's what I feel like your expectation should be for Keon Coleman this year, is a more consistent, doing good at what you're good at type of player. Last year, a couple big games, a couple of disappearing acts. The goal is, let's not see a lot of 2 catches for 14-yard type games from Keon Coleman. He might not have 6 for $110 every week either, but it's just about the consistency. Would you agree with that? What he does well, just being more consistent at doing that this year in year 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be real. I think fans kind of are too hard on Keon for what happened his rookie year. He's a very polarizing player. Coming out of Florida State, there was high expectations going into his final year of college. Didn't really live up to expectations there either. Everyone was focused on his 40 time. He's never going to be a separator at the NFL level. He doesn't have that elite NFL speed. But like you said, the things that he is good at, he can be very good at one day. And I think fans focus on the wrong things. Obviously, in the past, Josh Allen has excelled with separators, and And that's what fans wanted. That's why they wanted a Lad McConkey. Keon Coleman wasn't brought into the Bills to be that guy. As you mentioned, tremendous contested catch guy, needs to be a little bit more consistent with that. But he has that ability. He is a dangerous red zone threat. But the other areas where people kind of overlook his game, and to me, this is a part that I think he can excel at, is yards after catch. Get him the ball in quick passes and let him do stuff afterwards with it. At Florida State and Michigan State, he had punt returns. You don't put a guy that's a 4.6 as a punt returner unless you have incredible ball skills with the ability to make guys miss, physicality. So he has that elusiveness. Get him the ball, he's going to make plays. And it doesn't always have to be by separating. There's a lot of different ways you can get him the football. And I don't think Keon's ever going to be, in my opinion, a top-end star in the NFL. But Keon definitely has that 50 to 60 catchability going into his second year, where he can be an 850-yard guy, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns. And if you have Khalil Shakir contributing at a high level, if you have Joshua Palmer contributing in his role, that's perfectly fine. To me, this is Keon fits perfectly in a improved version of the everyone eats mantra that they had last year. And I'm excited to see that jump, because last year he averaged over 19 yards per reception. That's an insane number, an absolutely insane number. And everybody fixates on the 29 receptions. If you account for the games he missed due to injury, he was on pace for over 700 yards as a rookie. I don't know in what world a second-round pick getting over 700 yards as a rookie is a bad season.
No, not at all, man. You know, you also mentioned punt returns. It has been noticeable that he, at least in a few practices, I saw him. He's working the jugs. He was among the guys there back returning punts. You know, I had Jeremy White on the show last week, and we were talking about special teamers and who might fit in where. And he was talking about, well, get guys who, already are playing to do stuff, like Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. You might see them at some point returning punts. I don't know, though. We'll have to see how that plays out during the regular season. But anyway, that's an element to his game. And I do think his growth, from what we've seen in training camp, it really needs to translate. I know it's the everybody eats mantra, and if, Keon isn't doing it, somebody else could pick it up. But I think he's a very important piece to this offense this year, 100% for sure. And I'll tell you, last point, the Friday Highmark Stadium scrimmage is kind of like the good and the bad of him mixed in one. Like, he had 2 bad drops, one of them really bad and just inexcusable. You can't do that. But then he makes 2 great plays too, to more than kind of make up for it. Like I said, to me, it's about just being a little more consistent here going in the year too, and that's what's going to help him out. Anyway, let's take a real quick break. Come back on the other side. You did another good piece on the offensive line. I want to hit on that. I want to get your take on what's going on with James Cook. You've been there. You seen him briefly, very briefly. Apparently Monday he had to use a porta potty, I guess, and then he went back into the locker room. That's some guys that have impressed, maybe a few not as much. Plenty more coming up here with Mike Bundt. Guys, if you don't have it already, got some Talking Buffalo apparel out there. Been seeing some of it lately. I love seeing it. TalkingBuffalo.buffonweck.com. Hoodies, t-shirts, polos, crew necks, plenty of stuff. Love the support. And if you send me a screenshot, like always, I'll be throwing it up here on the podcast. All right, Mike Bundt, Trainwreck Sports, back with me. You did something on the offensive line too, and it's. This unit is so good, and the continuity has just been incredible with them the last few years. It is such an underrated aspect of this football team. I would argue it's the most underrated aspect of this football team. What did you talk about after practice? Who did you talk to, and what were your vibes on that?
Yeah, this is definitely the most underrated aspect of the Buffalo Bills. People know the offensive line is good. I don't think they realize they're not just good, they're one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. No doubt about it. Only allowed 14 sacks last year. That was, I think, 8 less than the second fewest allowed by any team in the league. So obviously it helps when you have Josh Allen, but tremendous job by them. And then the run blocking was very good as well for James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson running behind them. But after practice on Monday, I spoke to Connor McGovern and Deion Dawkins. When you look at this offensive line, obviously the first person that comes to mind is Deion Dawkins. He's been with the team forever. He's an incredible personality, and he gets the headlines. But there's a lot of talent throughout. Spencer Brown on the right side, a couple years ago, people went into the season with low expectations. We're talking about wanting to replace him. Now he has an extension. He's one of the most valuable pieces on this line. But even at center, Connor McGovern, people going into last season were calling for Cedric Van Pran Granger getting reps at center and starting eventually. Connor McGovern shut down that conversation right away. And he might honestly be one of the most valuable pieces to this line as well, with his relationship with Josh Allen, being able to call out certain things and really having that continuity. So this line is a big part of this offense. And there's still hope that a guy like Osiris Torrance can take another step forward. If he can do that and you get and you're able to stay healthy with Deion and Spencer and Connor, and I don't even want to look over Edwards at left guard. He's had good play on the field as well. This unit has so much ability to help the Bills get to where they're trying to be.
Yeah, and the continuity is incredible. 2 straight years they've played, except for the season finale last year, which didn't mean nothing. Spencer Brown missed 1 game against the Chiefs. Aside from that, it's been the same 5 starters every game for 2 years now with the Buffalo Bills. And it's not even just the starters. Like, the depth is intact from last year, too. Alec Anderson, I mean, he's nursing an injury now. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But Anderson, Grable, Vandermark, you know what I mean? You got Van Pran Granger eventually will hopefully be back soon. So you got a lot of the same people back. Let me ask you a question. So yesterday, like I said, you talked to Keon, you talked to Deion. I'm not trying to rhyme there, but you talked to Connor McGovern. At what point during practice do you say to yourself, you know what? Like, how did you come up with this is what I want to do? You know what I mean? Did you have a plan, like, before practice on Monday? You were like, I want to make sure I talk to Keon Coleman after practice. I want to make sure I talk to Deion Dawkins, and I want to talk to Connor McGovern. Or is it something that you're seeing during practice where the light bulb might click in and say, you know what, this is some content that I want to produce? Like, is it something you come up with before, or kind of like on the fly?
Yeah, so heading into training camp, I had an idea, what are my top 2 to 3 things I want to get to? And you don't always know going into camp, am I going to be allowed to talk to this person? Are they going to blow me off today? And that's not to, like, say anything bad. Some players just, they're busy, they have other priorities,
Sure.
and you don't always get a chance to talk to them due to time constraints and other things. So my first 2 things I really wanted to get to was Joshua Palmer and Elijah Moore. They were the talk of the offseason with the receiver room. So I got to that day 1. Day 2, I really wanted to talk to Christian Benford and Maxwell Hairston because Benford's been taking this ascension to one of the top corners in the NFL. And I really like the mentoring angle that him with Hairston was going to play. And I could have used Trey White for that, but I didn't have an opportunity to speak with him. So either way, it worked. So when I was there on Sunday, the focus was getting some Keon video and getting some defensive line video. I got some with Rousseau, and I never had a chance to speak with Keon on Sunday. So on Monday, when I went to practice, I basically had 2 focuses in my head. One, I'm going to get a bunch of video of the offensive line. I need to give this unit some attention. They're deserving. They don't get enough publicity for what they do. So I knew I wanted to talk to a couple of the offensive linemen, whether it was going to be Deion, Connor, Spencer, Osiris, or David Edwards. I was fine with whatever 2 I could grab. It just so happened that Connor was the first guy I saw, and then Deion was available a little bit later on. But I also still had all of that video from Keon on Sunday that I knew I had saved. I had archived in my files. So when Keon was walking by, I was like, I got to get him. I got to get him right now. I already have all of this. I know where I'm going to go with this story. And it just kind of worked out where the players I needed kind of walked by me at the times I needed.
How did you ask him, Mike, to put, because again, I look at the video and I'm like, yo, he's got this little Rode mic. I know, because I've used it. I have something very similar as well with the Rode Wireless Pros. Did you just straight up say, hey, can you throw this on?
Yeah, so some players hate those things.
Yes,
so,
I know.
The good news is equipment has gotten easy enough to where if they are against it, I'll just hold it and I'll put it in front of them like a normal mic. A lot of times I'll ask them, hey, are you okay with putting this on? Most players don't have any issues with it. So with Keon, I was just like, hey, man, are you okay with this? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. He clipped it. We're good. I'm not getting up in their face and grabbing them and putting it on. It's so easy to do that most of these players have no issues with it. Back in the day, though, I will say, like, when you're in a normal media scrum, that's a no-no most of the time. Yeah. Just get your regular mic and put that out and get whatever audio you can. But the one-on-ones, they're a lot more relaxed. And when you tell them, hey, it's just going to be a couple minutes, they're normally more willing to do stuff when they know you're not basically going to grill them with a tough bunch of hard hitters at that point in time.
Quick little follow-up techie question too, because again, presentation matters. When you're putting out a video, I think how it looks and how it's produced is a pretty big deal. The concoction that you have when you go and you're shooting, I noticed it. I saw a picture. You were off to the side. Maybe it was Bobby Babbitt or Sean McDermott speaking to one of the coaches. I don't remember, but it's like, so you got a cage. You got the Rode Wireless. You got a camera. What kind of camera are you rolling with there when you're shooting?
So I got a really basic. I have a Sony ZV-E10. So
that's not basic. That's a good camera.
It's a good camera, but from a video shooting perspective, more basic for a person like me. There were some more advanced cameras that I was looking at, but I don't have the money for that type of stuff at this moment. But Sony ZV-E10, I forget the name of the monitor, but a nice little monitor. I have a Rode Wireless for interviews. Then I have a Rode Shotgun that I put on top of it.
Yep.
A handle on the left side so I can like balance it a little bit better. And then I'm trying to think anything else. Another handle thing on top. So if I want to do a low shot close to the ground, I can balance things better.
So you don't use your cell phone for pretty much anything with your setup, the way your stuff.
The only stuff I use my cell phone for is when I need something quick and I need to post it on Twitter. So like say I'm filming my normal stuff for my video packages, but I see a player walking by quick or they're doing a quick drill and I just want to get a quick 10-second clip on Twitter. I'll just pull out my phone, get that, tweet it, and then post it. But anything that is in my video packages is professionally shot from my own stuff.
I could tell just by the gear that you have. Like I said, you're saying it's basic. It might be basic in the realm of being on a sideline and shooting video like a professional photographer might be, but in terms of podcasting and content creation, that's a very good camera. I actually have 3 of them now, but Sony even older than that. I got the old school 5100s. That's what people are right now when they watch my videos, which most people are like, yo, did you look pretty, the video's pretty good. Well, the camera that I have is actually even older than the one that you're talking about. But anyway, all right. So on a more serious note, James Cook, I got to get your take on it. I'm not going to go through my spiel again. I've been talking about him now for the last few days. I'd rather hear what you think is going on right now. It was certainly surprising, after the first week. Although in hindsight, as I've thought about it, I'm not as surprised as maybe I was in the moment. But what are your thoughts on this right now? What's going on in your mind, and where ultimately do you think that this is headed?
Yeah, it's pretty odd to me. I haven't seen something like this before where a person has reported for training camp, has practiced, and then randomly decides to hold in during the middle of camp. That's something I haven't seen firsthand before.
Brandon B. neither. He said that.
So it definitely caught the Bills off guard because they had no comment following practice on Sunday before being spoke the next day on Monday. To me, it obviously has to be a negotiating tactic by James Cook and his agent, hoping to get something done. But what is the end goal here? Does this mean that they're close and he's holding himself out until something happens? Does this indicate that they're far away and that he was hoping for progress during camp and that things really haven't showing goodwill hasn't really helped his cause at all? That's probably my takeaway. I know Tom Pelissero was saying that they've been in contact and that they're not that far away, but it doesn't appear that they're that close either based on what Brandon Beane commented on Monday. So my takeaway all along is that most likely Cook is going to be playing this season and that at the end of the year, they're probably going to part ways. I'm not 100% there where they can't figure something out. And I don't know if I even believe the ballpark figures of 15 plus million. If James Cook thinks he's getting 15 plus million, he's not living in reality at this point. To me, that where it would need to work out for the Bills to, I think, even consider it, maybe you're talking 3 years, 11 to 12 million per year. That's still a little rich for me, but I could see them maybe getting to the point where, okay, you were great. You've been great for 2 seasons. We'll go a little bit above to make it work. But I could see it more like the Bills are at 9 to 10, Cook's at 13, 14, 15, and they just can't narrow that gap.
I got to say, and I want to be really clear too, this is not no source information. This is me in my mind making an educated guess and nothing more. I think James Cook came to camp and in his mind was showing good faith, gave him a good week. Looked really good, by the way. He looked really good at camp. He has looked electric at camp, and I've talked about that a few times. Progress wasn't what he hoped it would be, if there was any progress at all, and now he's back to the business thing, and that's where we're at. Again, Tom Pelissero's got a gazillion sources more than I do, so I'm not going to sit there and downplay what he's saying, but my gut tells me that that's what's going on. My fear is if he's this much on, standing on business as he has said himself before, is he going to, let's say he doesn't get a new deal, whether it's 15, 12, 10, right now he's getting 5, okay? Is he going to stub a toe and say, you know what, I'm not risking it, not doing it? Is he at that point, or will it get to that point where, last year with the Jets, Hassan Reddick mailed it in, literally mailed it in. He didn't report to whenever, and he mailed it in on the field. It was dead obvious. I'm not saying he'll get to that point, but if he doesn't get a new deal at all and no raise, and he's only playing for $5 million, is he going to make that quote unquote business decision to say, you know what, I'm not playing through anything. You're not getting 100% of me. I have a shelf life and I'm going to go get paid and you're not paying me. So I care about my health more than I care about the Bills winning the Super Bowl. I think that's a fair concern. I do, Mike. I know it's not what people want to hear, but I think that's a fair, legitimate concern based on what he has said, what little he said, and how he's acting.
That's certainly possible, but I do think that would be a foolish approach for him to take if he truly is trying to maximize his value with his next contract. I only see one way he's going to get the money he's hoping for, and that's if he balls out this season and absolutely goes off. And if he's not participating because he has a minor injury, if he's not taking part and he's seeing limited reps and other things like that heading into the regular season, I don't believe that he'll end up putting up the numbers or showing on film what he needs to do to impress other teams. And then you go into the offseason and you're in the same situation, except for now you're taking a discounted rate to just get the contract. and be able to be a starter elsewhere. James Cook is a great running back. Like, he is a top 10 running back in the NFL, no doubt about it, in my opinion. Probably in that 5 to 8 range. But he is not Christian McCaffrey. He's not Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry. And if he's hoping for even close to that type of money, which I don't know if that's really realistic or not. I think more so that might just be what he's putting out there to try to maximize his value. He's going to need to put up 1,200 plus rushing yards. He's going to need 10 plus touchdowns. He's going to have to be involved in the pass game. So where I think we're going to get a better tell is, does this continue the rest of the week? Does this go into future weeks? Because at some point in time, if he continues holding out, the Bills are going to be like, okay, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do if you do hold out or hold in until the regular season. Maybe that turns into more reps for Ray Davis. Maybe that turns into more reps for Ty Johnson. If the Bills have success with them, then that hurts Cook's leverage even more. So ultimately, I'm not overly concerned, but it is something to monitor going forward.
Is a trade on the table now? Does a trade get put on the table based on what we're seeing right now?
Not at this point. It's too early, in my opinion, to consider that, especially since we don't know what Cook's long-term objective is. And I don't know what type of value you're really getting back for him at this point in time. A late-round draft pick, I'd rather just keep him on my team. And even if he does hold out for a while, hope that late in the season he can help you, because his explosiveness, while people talk down running back value, you can't replace James Cook's explosiveness at this point in the season. The Bills didn't have an explosive passing game last year. Their explosive plays were on James Cook runs.
Yes.
So I'm not willing to move that when there is no replacement for that in-house at the moment.
I agree with you 1,000%. He had 4 runs of 40 or more yards, second most, I believe, in the NFL. He has a gear that, with respect, and I like Ray Davis plenty, and I like Ty Johnson a lot, but he has a gear that those two guys don't have. And even if his role ends up being no more than it was last year, it is still an element to this offense that I think they definitely need. I agree with you about the trade thing. The only way he gets traded is if Brandon Beane gets a sense that, hey, man, this is just ugly. It's going to get ugly, I should say. Like last year with Stephon Diggs. It was about football, but it was also about, this is not good for the clubhouse. You know what I mean? And that certainly played a role in Stephon Diggs getting traded, because they didn't even get an asset for that year. They got an asset for the following year. But yeah, let him go play and let him go get $1 gazillion somewhere else, because you're going to get that comp pick, and it's probably more than what you're going to get in a trade anyway. I would disagree about the whole, you got to play and have the stats and show your value if it wasn't running back, because running backs are they're too replaceable. They're not replaceable in August, though. You know what I mean? They're replaceable in March and during the draft, not at this point of the season. So that's a good point that you made. All right, moving on actually one more quick question. Week 1, is this an issue come week 1? Is James Cook playing? Does James Cook have whether it's a new contract, maybe he gets a salary bump for this year to keep him motivated for this year, and you kind of maybe had a void year so you can give more money this year or whatever. But do you see resolution for this before Baltimore on Sunday night?
I expect him to be playing week 1 against Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. I don't know what the resolution is. You're right. Maybe they could give him a little bit of a bump to make him happy and get him to at least be a full participant this season. I don't expect an extension before that point. It just seems too far away. Focus is on football right now, getting ready for the season. So some way, somehow, he's going to be playing for the Bills on Sunday Night Football to open the season. But I have no idea how they're going to resolve things in-house and make sure that he's actually a happy camper at that point.
Here with Mike Bundt from Trainwreck Sports, winding down here. And again, really, really good job at camp. Proved the skeptics, including me, wrong. And again, congratulations. You've been crushing it. Who has impressed you like the most at camp right now so far? And again, you've been there plenty. You've seen other reports on days you haven't been there. But as you look back now, we're only 2 practices left. By the time people are listening to this or watching this, the majority of people anyway, we're going to be in our second last practice at St. John's Fisher. Who has really stood out to you in a good way? Like, who has impressed you the most?
Yeah, I'll name a few players. Number one is the most obvious one in the world. Keon Coleman has definitely stepped up during training camp this year. And obviously that's been reported by a lot of people. So that's not a surprise. Another guy on the opposite side of the field, another non-surprise, Christian Benford. He just locks down everybody. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people that believe he is one of the top corners in the NFL, and I'm at that point. To me, Benford is the second best player on the Buffalo Bills right now.
I agree.
He is underappreciated not only by the rest of the league, but I think by a large portion of Bills fans that don't realize that they have one of their best corners that they've had since Trey White was during his prime. So Benford's been incredible. And then for under the radar players, Javon Solomon, I think he has the ability to take that second year leap. I like what I've seen from him. And then offensive side of the ball, Tyrell Shavers, he was really good on Monday. And I'm getting to the point where with all these receiver injuries, I think if he has a good preseason, he has a shot of making this team. Now, other positions, the offensive line is the offensive line. I could talk about all those guys. We already know they're pretty solid. We already know a lot of the defensive players, what they could bring to the table. The last player I would say that has been pretty solid when I've been watching him, it has been Trey White. And I know he carries a big name, a reputation, but a lot of fans looked at that signing as a homecoming. You're just trying to bring him back. It's goodwill. He doesn't have much left in the tank. And even when the Bills cut him, a lot of people were saying he's done. He's had 2 major injuries. He doesn't have anything left. Trey can still play football. And I've seen him several times on one-on-ones with different receivers on the Bills before the injuries happened. And Trey's stepping up. Yeah, is he what he was in 2018, 2019 when he was balling at a super high level? He's not that player anymore, but I still think Trey could be a decent to good starter as cornerback too. And if anything, now that you have Christian Benford on the other side, this is a perfect opportunity where Trey can mentor Maxwell Harrison. He can hold the position down until Harrison's ready. And then you have a natural transition to Harrison when he's ready to take over. To me, this is a perfect setup and something that really, at the time of the signing, wasn't talked about in this type of context.
Well, first of all, you're speaking my love language when you mentioned Javon Solomon. I've had a gut feeling with him now for well before training camp. I think there's a role on this football team for him, and he's not going to be a guy who ever plays 55% of the snaps, but there's going to be opportunities for him in pass rushing downs for him to prove his worth. He's making this team. And Tyrell Shavers, you mentioned as well. I would even go a little bit further. I'd say I'd be surprised if he doesn't make this team at this point. If they keep 6 receivers, he's that 6th receiver. If they keep 5, I could see a scenario where Curtis Samuel starts the season on IR, who's, not up to speed, and Shavers is your 5th. He could do some damage in the passing game, which we're seeing at camp multiple times. Also, the day he got hurt with the ankle, he had a phenomenal practice that last Sunday before he got hurt on the last play, and he's really good on special teams. So I could see him absolutely making this team. Trey White, I agree with as well. The only thing on Trey that I need to see, can he run downfield with receivers? He looks really physical, good, sticky. I mean, a lot of these drills, and you've seen him, these one-on-ones, he's shutting guys down, the end zone, red zone drills. He's looked phenomenal for the most part. He got smoked on one play, and I was right there, watched it when Steven Gosnell got behind him, and he cooked him, man. Mitch Trubisky threw a perfect ball, and Trey very animated with his reaction afterwards. But that's what I need to see, what I'm a little bit worried about. Outside of that, he's looked great. Oliver, Groot, that's no surprise. And then the other guy, Matt Milano. If he stays healthy, he's back. He's back. I don't think it's unrealistic to say he could be 90% or more of what he was a couple years ago when he was an All-Pro if he could stay healthy, man. He has certainly looked the part. Let's flip the script a little bit. I don't want to say guys who've, been lousy, but give me one or two guys who they just haven't had a great camp. Maybe it's injury related, performance related, maybe a little bit of both. I got two guys that, let's just say that they're leaving you wanting more right now, and they might give you more. It's not over, but right now, a guy or two is they leave you wanting more. Let's word it that way.
Yeah, the number one player, and fans are going to hate when I say this because there was a lot of hype surrounding this player when he signed, and it was during a time when this position group was a big topic of conversation. But Elijah Moore has not impressed me.
Yeah.
And I see the quickness. I understand why fans are enamored with him. But at the beginning of camp, he was splitting reps between the ones and twos. And if you're getting reps with the twos when your receiving group is what it is now, that wasn't a good sign in the very beginning. I saw some inconsistent play, a few drops. And then now you have no Josh Palmer, you have no Khalil Shakir, you have no Curtis Samuel, and he's still not really standing out to me.
Nope.
It's Tyrell Shavers getting the opportunities on practice on Monday. They must have targeted Tyrell Shavers 7 or 8 times in team drills on Monday, to the point where even Keon wasn't getting as many targets as Shavers. And to me, that's deliberate. That's number one, giving him an opportunity to see what he can do with the ones. Number two, building chemistry with Josh Allen. And this is a player that they've invested time and development in. That to me was a sign. They want to see if Shavers has what it takes to make this team and make the most of his opportunity. And for more, there's been no splashiness to it. I almost wonder, and I thought this going in, was Moore brought in more to be a competitor with Curtis Samuel more than anything else. Because you look at how everything is set up right now. You have Keon and Josh on the outside. Those guys are clear cut. They're your 2 and 3 volume guys, no matter how you put things together.
Sure.
Khalil Shakir is your number 1 volume receiver in the slot. You still have Kincaid, who they're going to get involved for at least 40 to 60 receptions somehow. How many footballs do you have left for Moore and Samuel? And Samuel has that gadget role to where, even though he didn't put up the numbers to match his contract, you at least see what they're trying to do with him. And the other day with Moore, I did see an end around. So maybe they were trying to see a little bit if he can do some of that gadget stuff. But this is what I keep putting back to Moore. There's been a few Bills receivers in recent years that have gotten light contracts. And everybody always talks them up during mini camp and early training camp. But you've seen guys like Deontay Hardy. You've seen Trent Sherfield. And now you're seeing a guy like Elijah Moore. All with these smallish contracts. People have hopes for them, even Curtis Samuel. And then what happens when they come in? You don't see much production at all.
Nope.
And the truth of it is this. The fact they didn't sign Moore until after the draft means that they were willing to possibly draft someone if the right guy was there at the right spot. And it's not just that. 31 other NFL teams could have signed Moore at any point before then, and they didn't. What the truth of it is, everybody talks about how Moore came to Buffalo because he wants to play with Josh Allen and he'll have a good quarterback. Well, the New York Jets need weapons, and they didn't value him. The Cleveland Browns needed weapons. They didn't value him. It's not just about playing with a good quarterback. Teams that needed weapons didn't think he was worthy of staying in their organization. So I was hoping for more from him, but at this point, he looks like a bottom of the depth chart roster receiver and someone not to have high-end expectations for.
That's, incredibly fair, man. Every year there's guys who just look the part at OTAs and mini camp, and then you get to real camp, and it just fizzles out for some reason. Elijah Moore's at the top of my list as well. Now, he has had a little bit of leg soreness, has caused him to miss some time. But to your point, when KJ Hamler and Jalen Virgil and guys like that are getting as much run or more than Elijah Moore, it's not a great sign. And I thought going into camp, during our camp preview shows, that Samuel versus Moore was going to be like the electric battle at camp. Who's going to be that wide receiver 4? The winner is going to have a big role. The losers might be inactive on game days until somebody gets hurt. Well, it's not really playing out that way at all. So I would say him, and then I'm going to throw one other name in there. And this is another name that people probably won't be happy to hear, but Cole Bishop, for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm starting to worry about, can this guy stay healthy? This is happening a lot now. It happened last summer. It happened this spring. It's happening again this summer, where he's missing valuable time right now. So that's the big reason. Also, and I don't want to say he was lousy, because he was not lousy at camp before he got hurt, before the quad. And I was there. It was last Tuesday, I believe, when the quad thing happened. He's been okay out there. He made a play or two. I know there was one deep ball he got in on, although Josh underthrew it a little bit, but it's like, I didn't really see anything, and I was kind of locking in on him. Like, there was nothing that I saw from Cole Bishop that just screamed to me like, oh, this is going to be a much improved safety position this year. There's going to be a big upgrade at free safety alongside Taylor Rapp. I'm not seeing that from Cole Bishop. He looks to me, and it's just my opinion, but he's looked like just another guy out there. Not terrible, but okay. And now he's hurt again. So he's not having the kind of camp that I was hoping to see at all. And then, of course, Samuel with the injuries. Max Harrison, it's very unfortunate what happened to him. I thought Max Harrison was off to a predictable up and down start at camp. Really good moments, really bad moments. I think you need to expect that for a rookie cornerback. But yeah, Cole Bishop's just I'm not as high on him today as I was 3 weeks ago. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, no arguments here. It's a tough one. If he can't practice half the time, so if you're the Bills, I know he looks like he's set at being starter at safety when healthy, but what do you even expect out of him at this point? You don't even know. You have very limited sample size. He's barely ever on the field, and that creates a lot of uncertainty. So we'll see when he gets back what he brings to the table. But safety was a concern last season. It seems like it's a concern again this season. And when you look at a team that is looks to be much improved on the defensive line, has very good linebackers, and honestly, I love the corner room right now. If Harrison can return and eventually catch up to speed, and then you have some depth with Dane Jackson and Jamarcus Ingram, the safety room is the only room I'm really looking at, and I'm like, I don't know if I love it here. Taylor Rapp at least did enough to solidify things last season, but we need another solid year from him, and then opposite of him with Cole Bishop, who knows what you're going to get from that spot.
One other name I lump in there now as I think about it in real time, Derek Forrest. I'm at practice. You were there Monday. Cam Lewis and Jordan Hancock are both getting run ahead of Derek Forrest with Cole Bishop out. A couple of days ago, Rapp and Bishop were both out, and it was Cam Lewis and Damar Hamlin. So I really thought that Derek Forrest was going to be a guy who had a legitimate chance to, if not start, maybe at least be that third safety, which is clearly Damar Hamlin at this point. And by the way, we are taping this. I want to put this out there for a reason. It's a little after 11 a.m., so that's when we're recording this on Tuesday. Diane Rossini, less than 10 minutes ago, just put out a tweet. Let's circle real quick back here to James Cook. Diane Rossini, and this was at 11 a.m., says, I don't get the sense the gap in negotiations between James Cook and the Bills is as large as other notable hold-ins around the league. Cook's decision to sit out Bills practices is designed to get his deal across the finish line. We'll see if the two sides can come to an agreement. So another promising tweet from a prominent national media member. What I will say is Diane Rossini's been wrong about some Bills stuff plenty. So, but that's still, we'll look at that as encouraging. Hey, maybe we are, or maybe I'm overthinking it, and he's just trying to get the deal over the finish line. It does make sense. I'll say that much. Last question here, and I lied. I said I was going to have you on. It was going to be a short show. Here we are an hour later. Well, you know what? It's because I got a little techie and geeky with you, and I wanted to get a little bit on the inside of how you were preparing to do some of your stuff. And to me, that's a fun conversation. But anyway, preseason starts. We got a game Saturday, Highmark Stadium, New York Giants. Give me a few guys that you're looking forward to seeing in the preseason. By and large, of course, for preseason means very little in the big picture. But there's players that it matters to, and there's things that matter. What are a few things that you're looking forward to seeing with your own eyes?
Yeah, so when it comes to preseason, I'm always interested in either the young players that you haven't had a chance to see before, or the players battling for roster spots. So when you look at this offense, a lot of that is already decided. There's really not much open on the offense to really discuss. So the only guy really on that side of the ball would be Tyrell Shavers. Can he have a big performance and kind of solidify himself in that conversation for battling for one of the final receiver spots? Defensively, there's a million guys right now that I can mention. Hairston would have been number one if healthy, but obviously he's going to be out for the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
The guys at top of my head, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker. I'm really interested in Jordan Hancock. He's flashed during moments in practice. And I know early in camp, Bobby Babbitt was talking about finding his role and really seeing where he fits best in this defense. But they're giving him opportunities out there. Like you said just a few moments ago, they've been putting him with Cam Lewis at safety when Rapp and Bishop were out. They've moved him around the field. He's had opportunities for interceptions going up against Josh Allen in the ones, not playing twos and threes with Trubisky. Yes, he is getting reps with the backups as well. But Jordan Hancock is a very interesting player for me out of Ohio State. Dorian Strong, another one. When you look at these two defensive backs, there's a little bit of that draft a few years ago with Kyer Elam and Christian Benford. Some of those comparisons where you got the guy with the high-end ceiling, the potential, but then you also got a few guys lower in the draft that also provide some potential upside. Now, I'm not saying that either of those defensive backs are going to turn into stars like Christian Benford did, but the Bills are very traits-oriented when it comes to defensive players. They like guys that are smart, that fit their scheme, and have certain physical traits. So even when the Bills take somebody in the late rounds, there's something they see in those guys that they believe can fit in. Now, sometimes it's just special teams and stuff like that, but when the Bills specifically take positions like cornerback, knowing the background of Sean McDermott, knowing what Bobby Babbitt, he's specialized with obviously the safeties in the past, it grabs my attention. So there's a lot of guys on this defense, but definitely the rookies are the guys I'm focused on the most going into Saturday.
I got three quick levels here. Number one, you spoke on this wide receiver. I think it's very important to a lot of players. Shavers, obviously. I'll tell you, Elijah Moore might want to show a little something. Will he get cut? Unlikely. At the end of the day, though, $2.5 million contract fully guaranteed does not guarantee that he's going to make the team. That's not a guarantee. All right, they've done it before with O.J. Howard. So if they don't see anything from him and he brings no special teams value, and meanwhile Jalen Virgil goes out and he has himself an incredible preseason and he continues to look good, or hell, maybe even KJ Hamler, although I doubt it in his case, I could push somebody like him off the roster. Not likely, but it could happen. The Curtis Samuel injury and how they play that will be a factor as well, but it's important for these wide receivers, 100%. The rookies, all of them. I want to see all the rookies. all of them. And then there's 2 players who young veterans, who I think are playing for their lives right now. 3. I'll give you 3. Jordan Hancock, who we talked about. Dwayne Carter, he might not, he's playing, maybe he's not playing for a roster spot, but he's playing for a depth chart spot. He's playing to get on the field because you got Deion Walker, you got TJ Sanders behind the starters. If Dwayne Carter doesn't show out and have a good preseason, I think he's going to be stuck as that 5th defensive tackle. If he has a really good one, maybe he gets ahead of Deion Walker to start the season. So that would get him on the field. And then a linebacker, a second-year guy, Olafosio, who's, I haven't really seen anything from him in camp. And that's surprising because there's been a lot of injuries. Spector's out now. Bernard has been out for a lot of camp. Shaq Thompson got injured recently. It's like you don't see Olafosio out there getting reps and doing anything. So if he even gets an opportunity, is he going to take advantage? Because his roster spot is far from being secure at this point. So,
yeah, I could see him being on the outside looking in.
Yeah,
especially late round draft pick. You're hoping for something, and I haven't seen it myself. And especially when you're seeing some of these other linebackers step up when given opportunities. And you mentioned Balen Spector being hurt, and fans, they love to get on Balen Spector because he hasn't obviously had the best performance when on the field with the ones in the regular season. But Balen Spector's been decent so far in camp, and the Bills show no indication that he is even on the roster bubble. He looks very safe to me at the current moment. And another linebacker that has looked solid to me in the limited time I was focusing is the hometown kid, Buffalo Joe Andreessen.
Yeah.
And Joe has been very solid, and I think he's safe as a backup on this team as well.
I think Joe Andreessen is a borderline lock to make this roster for sure. Spector, I agree with you on the field. I think he's actually had a good camp. Before, if we would have recorded this 48 hours ago, he might have been on my guys that have impressed me at camp. I think he's had a good camp. However, he got hurt again, and it's the calf again. And Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have talked about, you could hear their frustration previously talking about Balen Spector being unable to stay healthy. So that injury might be what they say, you know what, whether he ends up on IR or whether they just say, I can't trust this guy at this point. I don't think his roster spot's secure because of the injury. I think it was 48 hours ago. We'll see, though. Who knows? Maybe they go outside the organization. Maybe Shaq Thompson, who's got his own injury, ends up making a team. We'll see. All right, I'm going to let you go. And I do appreciate you very, very much. If you're not following Mike on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, make sure you do at Mike_Bundt. And again, Trainwreck Sports just doing, you are representing them very well, and you are bringing a side to them. And like I'm saying, going back to the beginning, it wasn't me taking a pot shot at Trainwreck Sports. What they do what no one else does, and they do it very, very well. Again, but this is different, covering a football team and producing content like you have. You've been absolutely crushing it, man. I'm very happy for you, dude.
Yeah, appreciate it, and hopefully we can keep everything going. Once the regular season starts, the access changes quite a bit. So we're still going to be having a lot of Bills content. It's going to be a little bit different, but if you are looking for behind the scenes with Buffalo Sports, make sure to still follow us. We do have a lot of access with the UB Bulls football team, which is expected to be very good in the Mid-American Conference this year. And then basketball season. I know the Big Four ain't what it used to be. There's not a lot of fanfare, but we do have access to them as well and try to give them some publicity. So anybody that wants to follow along and want to be, I guess, more educated on different elements of Buffalo sports that might not be the Bills and Sabres, definitely follow Trainwreck and myself, and we'll keep you covered.
And by the way, I will be seeing plenty of you coming up pretty soon because I will be covering UB football as well this year. I'm going to be in the press box for some of those games. Unlike the Bills, I need to be in the UB press box because if I want to cover that team, I need to be there because I'm not going to be able to just watch every game on TV like I can, for the Bills. So you and I will be seeing plenty of each other. Again, check out Trainwreck Sports. They're doing a great job. I will be at training camp for these final 2 days, so I'll have some firsthand observations. We'll talk about tomorrow's show, HBO Hard Knocks, the first episode, all that, plenty more coming up on the show tomorrow.